Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Berto is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Guess what, my brothers and my sisters? Guess what the show is about today? Well, before we get into the show, right? You know what I want to do? I want to have a little bit of fun because we're going to have a very serious show, a very important show. Democrats, progressives, progressive Republicans, conservative. I want you guys to listen to this because this is going to be important, and it's going to be based on a Facebook post, a very long Facebook post of a good friend of mine. And I want to go over that issue in detail. Should we be scared? Should we have fear that somehow we couldn't win? If you take a look at what I had posted for the show, and you know what, I need to start doing that when I come to these shows, right? Kind of post what I used as the promo to the show, because what happens is a lot of times they don't quite get it. But you know, this is what I had as the promo of the show today. Let me just kind of put it on the screen. Fear. Well, actually, why did I put the one with my picture on? That's not the one that I wanted. Anyway, let me get rid of that one there, and then just tell you folks that we have a real show. Well, we always have a real show, but we have something important to talk about. But beforehand, I want to have a little bit of fun. Let's have a little bit of fun. You know, all this hoopla about Christmas, right? Let's talk a little bit about Christmas before we get into the show. I don't think the VP folk got the message. Check this out. It's not very long, but check this out. Donald Trump wants you to believe that saying happy holidays, there's something un-American about it. There's something wrong about that. We're supposed to say Merry Christmas, right? Check out what he had to say out there at his Merry Christmas rally in Michigan.
Merry Christmas, Michigan. Thank you, Michigan. I'm thrilled to be here with thousands of hardworking patriots as we celebrate the miracle of Christmas, the greatness of America, and the glory of God. And did you notice that everybody is saying Merry Christmas again? Did you notice? Remember when I first started this beautiful trip, this beautiful journey, I just said to the First Lady, you're so lucky I took you on this fantastic journey.
Oh, First Lady, you are so lucky I took you on this fantastic journey. Come on now. Well, you know what? It seems that the president didn't get the memo to the entire administration because somebody went on Meet the Press and check this out.
Chief Staff to the Vice President, thanks for coming on, sharing your views, and I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas.
Chuck, happy holidays.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Chuck, happy holidays.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Chuck, happy holidays.
Chief Staff to the Vice President.
So, the chief didn't get the message that in America, what we're supposed to remember is that according to Trump, you should not use those words. After all, what's the words that you're supposed to use?
Merry Christmas. And did you notice that everybody is saying Merry Christmas again? Did you notice?
Did you notice? Everybody in my administration is now saying Merry Christmas. So, did you notice that everybody in the Trump administration is now saying Feliz Navidad, Merry Christmas to you, folks? But anyhow, hey, Kathleen Morgan, welcome from Situate, Massachusetts. Welcome aboard. Folks, we're going to get started with the program in a minute here. Let me go ahead and first tell you a little something here. Let me bring that program up. You know how sometimes it goes here. I start the program and say, oh, wait a minute. Did I bring it up? The title of the program today is Democrats Will Win Big in 2020 if they don't succumb to establishment-driven fear. And where did that come from? Why did I start the program that way? Well, I had a good friend wrote a very long blog. It was pretty much a plea to Democrats, a plea to progressives, a plea to idealists. Please, people, I am just as, in effect, he said, I'm just as ideal as you are. But the things that you want, we'll give Trump again. We'll get Trump again. I don't concur with my good friend. I would like to go further and explain why I cannot agree with that. But a bit further than not agreeing, what I want to do is I first want to show how the media, right, portrays our candidates, because it's an important thing. So this is going to be the first part of the video, and then we're going to get into the actual program itself based on my friend's Facebook post. It's important. It is something that you all are feeling right now, or rather, a lot of rank and file Democrats are feeling right now. A lot of people who just don't want Trump again are feeling. So I want to first show you how the media operates, and then we're going to go into that a little deeper thereafter. Here we go. The corporate mainstream media uses 3 techniques. I call them the mom techniques in order to try to steer the American public to a particular direction, to a particular candidate, the outcome that best suit their corporate masters, their benefactors. And what's the mom effect? It's the marginalization, omission, and mischaracterization. I want you to see this little piece on This Week Today. And it's done so cleanly, most of the people that are watching it won't even notice what's going on, and we'll take it on the other side.
I think people are getting to know the candidates, and Biden's ability to get through the debate is one thing they'll put on the scale. In this case, I think what people are looking for is solidity. Although one thing that Biden has shown is his polls are sticky high. People are also not as far left as Twitter Democrats or the base. I mean, obviously Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are very, very strong. But here's a candidate flawed, has had trouble. He remains sticky high in the polls.
I think this race, Joe Biden has a very solid 30% of the vote across the country. The question becomes, is if Joe Biden loses Iowa and loses New Hampshire, how sticky is that number when he heads to Nevada and he heads to South Carolina? Because that's the real question mark. Keep in mind, in 2004, Howard Dean was ahead and John Kerry was in 7th, who ended up winning the nomination. The same was true in 1976. Nobody heard of Jimmy Carter in 1976. In December of 1975, he ends up being the Democratic nominee. A lot can still change, but Joe Biden has a problem in New Hampshire and Iowa right now.
And one more place where a debate has mattered is to Elizabeth Warren, who got dinged for not being able to make the numbers on her health care plan add up in one debate, and I think she's still trying to recover from that.
And how about Amy Klobuchar? She has had some very strong debates, yet still doesn't seem to break out of that pack.
I think that for Amy Klobuchar, I think that debate night was a great night for her, and it was a great night for her to set herself apart, and she is a bit on the rise. I mean, she still has a ways to go, but this is the point when you want to start making your mark. She's kind of hitting her mark at a point where it could matter.
Yeah, she's the Goldilocks candidate.
I think she has potential to surprise.
Do issues matter?
Yes.
I heard people talk about issues, and it was health care.
Yes, absolutely. The Democrats' issue in a good economy is going to be health care. And the biggest issue, though, for Democrats is they want to defeat Donald Trump. They'll look at who can sell the American public on the ability to make a difference in their lives. On health care is going to be their issue.
That discussion sounds on point. It even sounds sort of fact-based, but it definitely is not really what is occurring in the Democratic race. They said that one thing that is quite evident is that the Democratic Party is nowhere close to where the Twitter feed is, or nowhere close to the left. So what I decided to do is I decided to go to Real Clear Politics and do some calculations. You see that if you go ahead and bunch the conservative votes together and you bunch the progressive votes together, and you'll find that they add up to about 45%. And likewise, if you take a look at those that are more on, let's say, the conservative side or the more centrist side, they also add up to 45%. Now, here's the deal. They would want you to believe that somehow those on the left are just so far out away from where the real Democratic Party is. The truth of the matter is those on the left, that the 45% portion that's progressive is more in line with America when all polling are asked about the policies that people want. So progressives, it's where it's at, and even within the Democratic Party, it's not some sort of a has-been. In fact, like I said, the Real Clear Politics poll is more on the conservative side. Now, I also speak about mischaracterization. Mom from mischaracterization. They talk about Elizabeth Warren slid because she could not explain her Medicare for all, how she would pay for it, etc. No, Elizabeth Warren slid because two things. The media attacked her explanation for Medicare for all and how she would do it without tax increases, even though, as I had a program before with economist Dean Baker, he quite agreed that what she said was just as plausible as what anybody else would say as far as their plan that is yet to be defined or yet to be instituted in law would be. So no, it's not that Elizabeth slid because she couldn't explain her plan. She probably slid because the guys in the corporate media didn't want to accept what she said would be the way to pay for the plan without charging middle class any higher taxes. Of course, they don't continuously question the tax cut that was supposed to pay for itself. They don't question that on a daily basis that say, wait a minute, why are you asking for more tax cuts when it never covered what it said it was going to do? And last thing is marginalization. How did they marginalize? There are two people on the upswing. That is Andrew Yang is on the upswing and Bernie Sanders is on the upswing. Okay, those two guys have started a sort of a steady ascent. And Elizabeth Warren, while she had a hit, she's starting to go up again. Here's an interesting thing. The way they spoke about Elizabeth Warren was as if Elizabeth Warren was on a downward spiral. The way they spoke about Sanders was simply to omit him. The way they spoke about Yang was to completely omit him. So therefore, they didn't have to go any further and explain, but you know, Yang is getting some momentum. People are giving Yang a second look. They didn't say Sanders is one of those guys that he got a little dip after the heart attack, but after the heart attack, he was straight up. And of course, there's Elizabeth Warren, who still continues a solid base and a solid ascent after a decline that was created by the mischaracterization of the mainstream media, as well, of course, of the marginalization of whether she could win or not. So I'm saying if you take a look at exactly how these media personalities work when they're trying to move their candidates forward, you see that it's done in a very subtle manner. It is done with mischaracterizations, marginalizations. Look, Elizabeth Klobuchar is at 3.3, the same that Andrew Yang is at. And Andrew Yang is going up at a faster clip than Klobuchar. But suddenly, Klobuchar is the person that they're claiming, oh, she's a Cinderella person that you have to watch. Why isn't it Andrew Yang that we really need to watch because of how he has done everything without the media paying real attention to him, making him invisible, and he's still making a play for it. Folks, we must understand what the mainstream media does. We must understand that if we are to really get the information that we should have, it's not them that we can depend on. We have to depend on doing the research ourselves and coming, of course, to folks like us, the independent media that's doing the work to ensure that you remain informed. Okay, one of the reasons that I brought that up now, and where is my smooth transition? Something must be uncut off. That's why it was an abrupt transmission. It was uncut instead of smooth. Anyhow, so the title of the show is Democrats Will Win Big in 2020 if they don't succumb to establishment fear. Subtitle is Fear is the biggest driving factor to do something or to freeze in place. You know, there are two ways people react to fear, right? You know, you see the deer in the headlights. He's scared, but he doesn't move. Man, you can come and hit that deer, do whatever to that deer because he's frozen. He's so scared. Or there are folks who get scared, and what you do is you just act. You act from just this part of your mind, your brains. You don't actually do a calculated thinking of what needs to be done. That is what the plutocracy plays on. Both establishments play on that to control you. That is how they tell you the only way we can do this is if we do it this way. And by telling you that, you get tunnel vision. I don't want Trump to win. I don't want Trump to win. We have to do it this way. We have to do it this way. So, fear is the biggest driving factor to do something or to freeze in place. Voting allows most to do something, but external forces can set the wrong path. My contention is right now is, what was the title again? Democrats will win big in 2020 if they don't succumb to establishment-driven fear. That is how we lose, succumbing to establishment fear. I have no fear. Zero fear. I don't know if it's because of the way I was reared when I came to the United States back in 19, what was it, 1979 or something like that, dropped into the middle of nowhere, a country town called Brenham, Texas, where I was a strange dude, always looked at it as an opportunity. And again, that is a lot of us that come from south of the border. We look at what many people north of the border see as problems and issues. We see them as solutions to be conquered. We see them as solutions to be conquered, just like Donald Trump. I don't see Donald Trump as a problem other than a solution to be conquered. Because the truth of the matter is, most people are, well, let me get into the preamble before I get into my friend's blog. I have no fear about Democrats' ability to win in a landslide in 2020. Know what I'm saying? Not close election, in a landslide in 2020. I am cognizant that establishment manipulation for a particular outcome could temper the win. In other words, what can bring down that win if we continuously try to manufacture what the outcome should look like? We want Biden to win. Why? You must ask yourself, why? We've seen Biden in action. We know how much Biden has upstairs. We know Biden tried to run 2 different times. We know that. We know he's failed 2 different times, but it's not the failure that we're talking about, but it is how and why the failure each time. Okay? We know that. But still, the establishment is manufacturing a success for Biden by saying, oh, all the people like Biden. Turns out Biden is playing on a trick. Black people liking Biden. Why do they like Biden? Because he worked for Obama. And why? Because he worked for Obama. Well, he must be somebody who will look out for our interests. After all, the first black president chose him as their choice. What many black people fail to realize is that Biden was chosen not because Biden had some spectacular civil rights record, but he was chosen to win the racist white vote. And when black people start to see some of the things that this guy has said out of his own mouth, that shows he was not all that much different than the average person, right? Then one will see it. Lee Grant will talk about that after. Lee Grant just called me, I think you called me a slave, Lee? That's okay. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But here's the deal. We have to understand that Obama was strategic, and Obama is still strategic, but he was strategic in picking Biden. He picked Biden because Biden had the necessary racist proclivities to attract others. I knew Obama was going to win after a canvasser went into Pennsylvania, Appalachian part of Pennsylvania, asked the family, who are you guys voting for? And the family turned around. The woman, I don't know why she did it, turned around and asked her husband, hubby, who are we voting for? And he turned around and he said, we are voting for the N guy. You know what? The N-word guy. And a lot of people got mad and upset and all of that kind of stuff when they heard that story. And for me, that story was a big smile. Because I can't change somebody's heart. I can't change any of that. What I can do, however, is understand that if somebody can supersede their prejudices to vote their economic interests, we win. You see? And that is what I started to tell people around. Don't worry about somebody's personal prejudice. Worry about how you can become a coalition to win. Right now, we know Donald Trump is the biggest racist out there, right? But let me give an example before I go into my friend's blog, because this is important. If Donald Trump is a racist, and somehow Donald Trump's policies made everybody better, made black people lessen the gap in black people, lessen the gap in Latinos, lessen the gap in all these other areas. Here's the truth. I wouldn't care if this guy is a racist because I don't have to live with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump policies do not materially affect me, my family, and people, Donald Trump is generally okay. In other words, and what I'm saying, if I were a white person and I understood as well that Donald Trump was good for everybody as far as, even though I know he's a racist or whatever, and his policies would be better, I mean, I'm not trying to be Donald Trump's friend. And that is where a lot of times progressives in general as well, they look at things and say, well, you know, this person is a bad person, X, Y, Z, ta-da-ta, ta-da-ta, ta-da-ta. And I don't worry about that. I'm looking for policy. I'm not looking for the love from anybody. I'm not looking for any of that. It's about how does the policy affect your family, your friends, you know, that's what you want to know. The fact is, however, that Donald Trump's policies materially not only affect black people, it affects white people more so. Why? Black people and Latinos are used to being prejudiced against. They are used to a whole lot of bad things happening to them in this society. But Appalachians think Donald Trump is their savior. They believe that he is in it for them. And he is telling them that the reason they hadn't gotten all these good things over these years are that people who look like them, those other people, those black people, those brown people, those Latinos, those others, those Muslims, all those people are taking your birthright. But elect this great guy. Elect this wonderful guy. And suddenly your problems are over. He pit one group against another group for his success. While they're losing their insurance, they're losing their health care, he is passing regulations or killing regulations that protect the waters in Appalachia. All the coal mines that couldn't get their ash left into the streams are now throwing them in the streams. All the water that you drink, the regulations have changed. We can go regulation after regulation. Look, the people in Flint, Michigan have been drinking dirty water for a long time. Mostly black city. Again, black people are used to bad things happening to them. Minorities in general are used to bad things happening to them. The people that are not used to it are white people in general. I'm not talking about Appalachia because you know my phrase. Let's unite Appalachias, the ghettos, and the barrios, stereotypical. But when we realize how common, the commonality that we have, we can actually start to have some real economic success in forcing issues. So now, with that as the backstop, with that as the background, what I want to do is go to my friend's post because it was wholehearted. Roy Cohen on Facebook. I'm going to read it fast, and where I need to go into make some comments, I will. But the most important comment is made to my brothers, my Democratic brothers and sisters, my Republican brothers and sisters that are that have seen the light. Many of them have, but are so scared. I want you to listen to this. But my friend, he is this. Let's get to the blog. This is what he wrote. All I will say is I am 71 years old and have lived through Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush 1, Obama 2, and Trump. Prior to Trump, all were presidents, some good, some bad. One truly awful in many ways, Nixon, but even Nixon had a few redeeming values. Trump, not a president, an emotionally weak sociopath, wannabe Mussolini. If you don't know who Benito Mussolini is, go check him out. He is the most dangerous, most incompetent creature to ever occupy the White House in my lifetime. This is a 71-year-old, and I defer to this man because this man has lived in America much longer than I have. So I have reverence to Brother Cohen. But there are things that I disagree with him, and I think in this particular issue I am right. He is the most dangerous, incompetent man. I like people. I want the best for all. It breaks my heart to see hungry Americans, those that cannot afford healthcare, uneducated people, people whose sole purpose in life is to pile up more and more and more money. I deplore those who are racist, bigots, narrow-minded, those who use religion to oppress others, and those who resist change. I deplore those who would know science and what is happening to not only to the atmosphere but everything else. Woo! That said, I have seen people every day of my 71 years. I thought we made some progress when the segregated Southern public school system I was educated in finally became desegregated. I thought the world changed for the good when the Civil Rights Act was signed into law. My president, Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, it's more than 50 years later, the torch has been passed to two generations, JFK, and guess what? The racism and bigotry has been passed to new generations like Ebola to the next host. I want to digress a second. My brother Cohen, racism never died. When they passed the laws, it never changed it. The only solution to racism is ultimately integration and intermixing and all that kind of stuff. That is what really turned society completely around, because you will always have that particular group of folks that have that animal mind that just look at differences for differences' sake. Not everybody, but I don't think that racism ever left. It was just put on the check, and what Donald Trump did is he took the scab off to say this is something we really need to work on. When you get the most racist president out, I think he's actually helpful, and I think we can use Donald Trump as a help or as a hindrance. I would rather use him as a help. So he says, same old crap. Idealists who, like me, want to see these problems go away and fast, want to do something about it. Yeah, it's a new time, a new society, new world. Things are different. Young people are more involved. Or is it? Young people got involved in the 60s opposing the Vietnam War. Opposition began around 1963 and crescendoed in 1972. It took almost 10 years to force the best and the brightest, with respect to the late David Halberstam, to get us to hell out of the horrendously stupid international atrocity. Change has proven to take decades in American society, and most people are naturally inclined to resist it with all their being. Young, non-voting people resist getting off their asses and voting. Lots of older people resist any desire to pay taxes to help anyone with a lower net worth than their own. I could go on and on. And what I say is, when you have a society that is a dog-eat-dog society, when you have a capitalist society that depend on there's good competition and there's bad competition. We have a lot of bad competition, okay? When you have a society like that, there is a reason why those old people are going to try like hell to protect what they have. And the reason why is they know they can't go get it again. As far as the younger folk, they will get up if they feel a reason to get up. Right now, we haven't taught them that. We have canned the civics courses. We have canned so much. And this isn't by accident. This is by design. It is by design that our plutocracy wants a dumb people. As we became more intelligent, we started to liberalize. We started to create policies that help people. As that became evident, and the Powell Manifesto, written by the Democrat named Lewis Powell, came out to say, hey, we got to be careful now. These people are getting smart. And that neoliberalism that we all want to ensure that just a few of us can really take all the spoils or most of the spoils so that we can live so much better than everybody else so that we can be served, that is in danger. When I talk about the two establishments being very similar, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. The Powell Manifesto was not written by a Republican. So I am a progressive Democrat, a very left-wing progressive Democrat in the views that I have. And it's a view that says I want people to do well. Daniel Ledo, you're listening? I want you to do well. You will not do well in this society. Continuing. Thing is, bottom line, I want all the change you want. That's what my friend is saying to the rest and to the idealists like me. And we have to keep fighting for it. The thing is, this isn't George Bush in the White House. This isn't Gerald Ford. Reagan was worse than those two. We have an evil, manipulative con artist psycho who got himself elected to the White House by lying, cheating, BSing and tearing at every piece of the national fabric that holds this nation together under our Constitution. And now he and his minions are working overtime to make that Constitution not worth the parchment or paper it's written on. Let me stop there, my friend. And the reason I'm stopping there is that statement is anathema to me. We elected one man, Donald Trump, who brought in a bunch of corrupt people. Assuming that the United States is all that we have said it is. Assuming that's true. And by the way, I do believe that is true. Assuming that's true. A few hundred men coming into our framework can only be successful if we allow them to be successful. And by we, I'm not only talking about the common man, the average American citizen, okay? Donald Trump has a lot of complicits, and they're not all Republican, okay? Because there are enough people around this country to have created havoc for Donald Trump to exist or to be able to do what Donald Trump is doing. And that is what we have to get into our heads. The reason that nobody has acted on Donald Trump, including many of the establishment of both parties, is because acting on Donald Trump to oppose what he's doing brings in a new headache. For once, first of all, America is a progressive, liberal country, economically and becoming so socially. If you ask Americans what they want, they tell you what they want, and it is the policies that I support. Now, when the right goes ahead and lies about these policies, when they go ahead and tell people when they misrepresent these policies, suddenly people get scared. And that is what, I'm going to continue with Brother Cohen's piece, but we have a job to do. We don't sit back in fear. We don't stay still in fear. I'm going to have a message for people near the end. But here's the thing. So, yes, Donald Trump wants to trample the Constitution. He can't unless we allow it. He wants to do all these things unless we allow it. You know, all them people in Appalachia, they have family right here in Houston. All those people in South Carolina that supporting the wrong candidate, they have family. The thing about it is, too many times, what we have learned is to not buck a system. What we have learned is to acquiesce. What we have learned is to not go out there and say, no, I disagree. This is it. People like strength. Republicans win because they give you the semblance of strength even as they screw you. They give you that semblance of strength. But people eventually catch on. I mean, people have caught on for a long time. I mean, the Republicans have only won one popular vote since Bush. And only Bush has won a popular vote. Only Bush. Most Americans know the truth. It is an aberration in the Constitution designed by people who wanted to have a control over power, not real democracy, that gave us an electoral college. And people can try to spin that anyway. They can try to deify the founding fathers. They can try to do all those things. I read the papers, what you call the Republican papers. I forgot what it's called now. I read those. These guys were solely wanting to make sure they could maintain a certain. Yes, they wanted a good country, and they created a fairly good capital document in the Constitution. But when you read the Federalist Papers, it is not hard to see what they were really about. And we're living it. We are living it. So we have a minority of the country controlling the government, but it's worse. We have allowed, because of the timidity of the past Democrats, we have allowed we're going to have to be bold when we take over to be able to amend what was done to the judiciary. What do I mean by that? And please stay with me, folks. I need you to stay with me. And if you're just tuning in or whatever, please go ahead and share this. Please go ahead and share this. We really need people to hear this start of message. But what they've done is they've assigned judges that care nothing about what's right or wrong, just what's in the interest of the plutocracy, period. So now, when progressives get into power in 2020, and remember what I said, we will be in power in 2020. The question is how big. And who will determine how big? You are, by not following necessarily what the establishment tells you to do. But here it is the deal. What they've done is they've tried to institute minority rule with the judiciary. In other words, we come and we establish Medicare for all. Somebody with standing, some state with standing is going to go to the Supreme Court eventually and say, we think this is unconstitutional. And all they have to say is it's unconstitutional. And after they say that, the only way to make that constitutional then is two ways, actually, or three ways. One, we can impeach the hell out of judges we think ruled wrong if we had a supermajority. Two, the Constitution would have to be amended to specifically say that the law we pass is legal. Or three, we pack the courts. Three options, right? I don't want to have to do any of that. We must win with supermajorities. We can win with supermajorities. Because if we were to stop being timid, look, if I had, let me tell you what I would do. Bald-headed black man. If I had the financial resources, I would build me a posse. I would get me a bus, a small bus, maybe a van. And I'll put politics done right on that van, tell the truth. And I would spend all summer, not all summer, only part of the spring, in Appalachia. And I would be going from place to place to place to place. May have a couple of right-wingers in the car with me with guns, maybe, to protect me in some areas. But I will be out there letting these people know that we are on the same team. But here is who has a most important task. The problem with voting correctly today isn't black people, isn't Latinos, isn't Asians, isn't everybody natives. The problem right now in this country are too many white people voting against their own interests. And notice I said their interests. Ironically, their interest is also our interest. But they have been given a boogeyman to be scared of more than the boogeyman that's screwing them. And the boogeyman that's screwing them isn't Trump. Trump is the embodiment of the system that is screwing them. Okay? Trump didn't start the depression that occurred in Appalachia. Trump didn't get all those textile mills out of North Carolina and South Carolina. Trump didn't do any of that. Trump didn't put all those people in dire straits. You see? But he told them that we did it, meaning all those other people did it, as one who screwed them. He didn't tell them it was a plutocracy. And then he said, only I could solve the problem. Only I will solve that problem. And these people sat down and believe it. And you say, well, how can they be so stupid? They're not stupid. They're desperate. And people say, well, a lot of these people have money. And well, there are two groups of people. They're the very poor that supports Donald Trump, who are desperate and really think that it's a zero-sum game. They have to take something from us to get it, as opposed to taking it from the plutocracy who has been stealing it from us all. That's what they don't get. That's what they don't get. But nobody's there to tell them, because MSNBC isn't talking to them. And a lot of our progressives are not talking to them. Our progressives are scared to engage with those people they think are crazy right-wing people. And the right-wing people are scared to engage because they think left-wingers are nutcases. And that's what both sides want. Both sides want both of us kicking each other's butt. That's what they want. So what we have to do, I tell you what I want to do is I want to continue with his article. Bottom line, this is him speaking, I want you, and we have to keep fighting for it. Thing is, this isn't George Bush. I read that one already, but here we go. Think those rich people are withholding health care from millions? Think that's an issue? It is a big one, but there is the thing. You and I cannot, with evil, all power, Fox News, and right-wing talk radio, change things in 6 months or 2 years. Yeah, we can get lots of young voters out in big blue cities, New York, Chicago, LA, even Houston. Thing is, most of the action does not flip one single solitary red electoral vote that put Trump in the White House. The White House cannot be won in 2020 without swing voters and independent voters. Math is not there. Won't happen unless tons of new voters out in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, as well as Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Donald Trump gets reelected. Unless Texas actually flips blue stateswide in 2020, odds are less than 10% Trump is favored to win. All right, I want to stop you right there, Brother Cohen. I want to remind you of something. I love what people like to say. People always talk about this mythical center, about who the swing voters are, about who the moderates are. I can turn a swing voter and a moderate voter into what everybody else would think is a liberal. And it's simple because all of us get sick. But what happens is nobody wants to first spend the time to listen to what these people are telling them, what their real fears are, right? I find, but I'm only one person, and well, of course, I have a radio show as well, actually several. But I find, if you give folks the honor of genuinely listening to them, not letting them speak, but when they're speaking, listening to them, you can also modify what you're going to say. Sometimes you actually modify some of what you're going to do. It's the same reason that I've just added. Yang doesn't support Medicare for all as Bernie Sanders does, but he's one of my personal, this is personal now, my personal trio. I'm now looking at weighing Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang. Why? Because I listen. I want to hear the math. And you say, oh, people don't care about math. You know, in general, they vote their gut. But remember that guy in Pennsylvania who said why they were going to vote for the N-word guy. Who are you voting for? I'm voting for the N-word. That told me that there is a point in everybody's psyche. And remember, nobody has one as big as Obama has. There is somewhere in somebody's psyche where there's that set point. And that's a set point that I look for. Because we're all humans. We all need stuff. We all build stuff. We all give stuff. We're all multifaceted. We cannot just cede the center. We cannot just cede to a false center. Because what I'm saying is if I told that swing voter that that election means bankruptcy to you, how many people vote for their bankruptcy? Some will continue to do so. But how many won't? If I tell you that your vote will kill your kid, some will continue to vote that way. But some won't. And we're not looking for 100%. We're looking for not being fearful, not abiding by by what they're telling you about a mythical center, not believing that somehow the party wants Joe Biden because he's the only one that can beat Trump. That is not why they want Joe Biden. Understand the mechanics. The plutocracy will cede Joe Biden on the left. The plutocracy would cede Amy Klobuchar on the left. The plutocracy will cede Pete Buttigieg on the left. Why? because they are willing to play the existential ball of existence for the plutocracy as is. They are willing to make no changes to the balance of power between those who work and those who are the masters. That is what Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Amy Klobuchar brings to this race. And that is why they are always trying to be propped up. That is why in the media piece that I showed you earlier today, you notice who wasn't mentioned. They did not mention Andrew Yang at all. They did not they mentioned Bernie Sanders just to say where his poll numbers were. It is, one of the important things is that we don't understand the mechanics of how this politics work. And once we do, all of us become the sellers of the message. Because it can't be just a few of us independent journalists or independent broadcasters or whatever. We need everybody. We need everybody. Everybody has to be in the game. Now, remember how I closed a certain... Well, let me finish this thing, and then I'm going to close with my post-amble. Thing is, most of that action today does not give a single electoral vote. That's what he's saying about having to win Texas. Those independent and swing voters include a lot of people who resist change, are conservative personally by nature, and fear change more than anything. Yeah, but they also fear their death. They also fear their painful death. They also fear their bankruptcy. One of the things progressives never do, they don't talk like the right. I am willing to do so. I'm willing to say the Republican Party in Texas has killed over 2,000 plus Texans every year from the time that they got rid of Obamacare. I am willing to say it the way it is. The Republican Party in Texas has assassinated many Texans, thousands of Texans, since the inception of the Affordable Care Act. That's a fact. But we go out and say, well, it would be nice if we had it. No, we got to tell Americans what it is like. Find your cousin was killed by those Republicans who prevented you from getting that health care you needed. Your aunt was killed because they didn't give you the care that you needed, that you qualified for. If you simply signed and say, I would accept this plan for 3 years for free, and thereafter it costs me 10%. Given that it costs the economy a lot more. Because if the over 100 billions that we've left on the table was in the Texas economy, it would be that much more. But our politicians who are comfortable are willing to put your health at risk for an ideology. They are willing to protect the tax base of their people for an ideology. And they don't pay the price. Remember, the reason they do that is they don't pay the price. And the people who vote for them, the ones who vote in Texas, right? If you're an engineer, if you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, and all these different guys, and you have the healthcare system provided by the employer, you are fine. But everybody else is subsidizing you. You may say, but you don't pay taxes to subsidize. No, we're subsidizing you with our free labor. We're subsidizing you by working for substandard wages. We're subsidizing you by not having health care. We're subsidizing you by so many reasons, but we don't speak like that. If we ever decided to speak the truth with the gravity that it deserves, if we ever told the truth and not fear, but the reason we don't do that is even the Democratic establishment is scared that if all of this comes out, everybody wants more. Everybody wants what's theirs, to which I say they deserve it. Jeff Bezos doesn't deserve $160 billion. There's nothing he did for that. You do. But you don't partake of that. You have been programmed to believe that because he's a capital guy, that he deserves that. He has done nothing to deserve it. The teachers that taught him what he knows never even got a fraction of that. But they're the one who built him. The people who built the stores, the technology, the engineers who built these things don't get a fraction of that. But he was a capitalist. It's a paradigm shift in thinking, and nobody wants us to contemplate doing that. Because we if we ever decided to contemplate thinking about who bills, who made what. You remember they tried to make it, when Obama said, you didn't make that, they tried to make a big thing out of that. I was pissed at Obama. Obama should have said, hell no, you didn't. But you know, Obama, that's not what I meant. No, you didn't. I created Willie's Computer Software Company. I created a software package that complemented Windows to make an interrupt structure on the serial port do something it never did. I created it out of my mind. And I still felt a responsibility to my professors at UT who first turned me on to the 8051, to the 8080 CPU, to the Z80 CPU. Because no man is an island, no woman is an island. When we start, this individualistic way of thinking is a fallacy. It allows others to take advantage of others. It allows you to use all these different mechanisms. So, the rest of the article, the part of the article that I want to read, the other part of the article is where he says, Trump will be shouting communists and socialists at us. As will every other GOP politician. These are fear tools and fear sells. And he's right, fear sells. It is the strongest of all emotions. The fact that 20 million Texans have no fear, that have no health care coverage scares no one. At least not enough to scare the Republican voting for a Democrat for president. It is a fact. People don't buy facts. A lot of those 20 million are kids, and kids can't vote. I want the candidate who can and will get those swing votes and friggin' proverbial would put a wooden stake in the vampire Trump's heart. No one else. I am going to post this directly as a comment under Indivisible Houston. Please go easy on me. I'm Daniel's dad. I love Daniel. Daniel is my, hey, he's your son, but I love Daniel like a son. That guy is going places, and that guy is going to really revolutionize, help us revolutionize this place with progressive values. Now, Brother Cohen, Daddy Cohen, that is. I really get the fear. I understand it. Being fearless from Panama, which is where I'm from, we know what to fear a government looks like. We know what to fear a government feels like. We are not there yet in the United States. We could get there. I am still able to do this show. I can still do this with the expectation that I am still protected by the Constitution. Still, I feel safe for that. I feel grateful for that. What will stop that is fear and electing the wrong person. We elect one of those centrists. Nothing changes for the average person that is in pain right now. They may get some health care, but I am telling you, for those who've never been on Obamacare, many people can't use it based on the deductibles and what the private insurance companies have done to Obamacare. Many people can't use it. It's blasphemy to say that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. You can't, if you have these high deductibles that don't kick in until, or your payments don't kick in, you're paying insurance, high rates of insurance that you can't use. Remember that. So it is important, it is very, very important for us to put somebody in there that is going to institute change. And yes, they'll be called communists, socialists, or whatever. We don't need to talk labels. I've been telling people, whenever they say, whatever they call you, simply reply, this is what I will do for you. This is what will be done, and this is how we will do it. Have very solid answers on that, and then get ready for the fight. And the fight isn't to just say, this is what I'm going to do for you. After you've said, this is what I'm going to do for you, the fight is on, and you tell them what they intend to do. You intend to kill people. Your policies kill America, and you start making those ads. This policy from the Republicans, if they get into power and do this, it kills you. Hey, Appalachia, those things in the water right now, the chemicals in the water, go to your doctor and check your blood. And you start making, we don't know how to fight. But we can. And it doesn't have to be the party. And that is what my program is all about. Not empowering the party who has no... You know why the party won't put up a commercial that says they're dropping mercury into the waves, into the streams? They won't do that because it also will affect some Democratic benefactors. So they're not going to go out and say all these things in such a blatant manner because they have the same funders. Grassroots. So, Brother Cohen, let me tell you, if we get a century, first of all, my contention stands. Unless we screw up royally from the party, even Biden is going to win. But Bernie will win bigger. Elizabeth may win a bit less bigger. I even think Andrew Yang would win. Klobuchar would win. All of them would win. But because the fear factor is out there just as much as it's out there to the right, the difference is that the left is a lot larger than the right. The Democrats have a much bigger party than the Republicans. The thing about it is the Republicans maximize their votes. So once we get you're right, fear brings people out. But we have to be cognizant of what is really, really happening. And if we do that, we win. So my brother, I love that piece that you wrote. And I think it's an important piece for everybody to see. Because it is how things are right now. What Brother Cohen has written is how things are right now. And I'm going to turn that into a blog as well because I think he wrote a very insightful piece. But the next part of that blog needs to be insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results. In this case, it is a middle class dying. And a Biden, Klobuchar, Buttigieg continues the slide of the middle class. Not as bad as under Trump, but it continues the slide of the middle class because there's no policy in there to reverse what has happened. If we want success, we better bring somebody that is ready for it. If we want success, we better elect somebody that wants transformational change, is going to make the necessary change in this economy, because this economy is what is flawed. It is flawed in such a manner that it moves a particular set of capital directly upward. It's by design. It is a math problem. You just have to do the math. You just have to do the math. We're coming to the end of the program, folks. I want to thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. I ask you so kindly to share the program. Most importantly, I ask you to become contributors to Politics Done Right via Patreon and other forms. I'm kind of running a little bit over, but what I'm going to do right now is put the links of how you can support Politics Done Right. You can go ahead and in our chat room, in our chat on the different platforms. You can subscribe there to patreon.com at politicsdoneright.com. You can also help us with our upgrade for our media tools. And I just gave you the GoFundMe there. Likewise, you can go ahead and go directly to PayPal to support the show. And you can purchase at the store. I just got a new design in for Andrew Yang. That comment that he made, there's a new T-shirt out there. But in the time being, why don't you just get yourself a We Support Progressive Media T-shirt? And there it is. Get that T-shirt. We support progressive media. That is how we are going to inform people. That is how we are going to allow people. Yeah, I read about, Karen, I read about that stuff about purging of the votes. All of those are techniques that they're going to use. I'm going to go over by about 2 or 3 minutes. All of those are techniques. But here's what we got to do, Karen. What we have to do is, okay, so they're purged. There's nothing that's stopping them from putting them back on. We are going to have to re-register those people. If the Supreme Court says it's okay, they're terrible, but we will just have to go out there and re-register. There are a lot of us. There are a lot of us that can go out there and do work. I was a person that signed people up to register. I got to go renew my license. But that is what we do. For every obstacle they put in front of us, we jump over it, we go under it, we go around it. I want everybody to be positive. I want everybody to be positive and say to themselves, we are going to take 2020. I want everybody to be positive and say, we are going to do what it takes. It's not going to happen. If I can do my little piece in mobilizing folks to do something, go out there and register people to vote. Talk to people. Share these shows. Empower people. That is how we do it. Because we are right. We are in the right. We are the ones that are humane. We are the ones that care about people. We are the ones that care. Don't let anybody take that away from you. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!